And we join Channel News Asia's Timothy Goh, who's been following the rally which started today in central Bangkok. Timothy.
Well, Gerard, I am here at the Ratchaprasong anti-government protest site. We are backstage. You can see the stage right behind me right there. Well, today thousands set off from here and all over Bangkok for the Sukhumvit area, a popular commercial and tourist district in the Thai capital, for those of you familiar with Thailand. The protest leader, Suthep Thaugsuban, led a big crowd as they marched through the main thoroughfares, about 200 people or so. He said the protesters will not be preventing people from voting this coming Sunday. Instead, they will block the roads, turning them into walking streets, or a whole big picnic street, as he called them. The protesters will be gathering in different places, also beginning from today. On election eve, on Saturday, they will join Thai Chinese in marking Lunar New Year in Bangkok's Chinatown. The authorities have also announced that they will step up security for the elections. The army is deploying more troops to the capital, especially around protest sites, and some 10,000 policemen will also be deployed in Bangkok. The Election Commission says that the election process could take months to complete. It will not announce the results until all the votes are in. About 49 million people are eligible to vote here in Thailand this time around. Advanced voting was disrupted, if you recall, by anti-government protesters last Sunday. And the Election Commission says those who could not cast their vote will be able to do so on February 2nd. February 23rd, I should say. And it is also making allowances for a fresh round of voting if there are further disruptions on Sunday. Thailand's opposition Democrat Party may be boycotting the February 2nd polls, but sitting out this election could have dire consequences for the party's future. Channel News Asia's Indochina Bureau Chief Anasuya Sanyal explains.
Thai anti-government protest leader Suthep Thaugsuban has called on protesters to disrupt Sunday's elections, but somehow stop short of violating voters' rights. But the issue of voting has become a divisive one for his former party, the Democrats. They boycotted polls, gambling on their postponement. But now, as polls look certain to proceed, their political futures are in jeopardy. If Democrat MPs fail to vote on Sunday, they'll be ineligible to run for office in the next elections and lose their right to vote in that election as well. Also, under Thai law, any party that boycotts 2 elections in 8 years is automatically eligible for court dissolution. The last election boycotted by the Democrats was in April 2006, almost exactly 8 years ago. Now, it's possible to ask the Election Commission for an official abstention with a valid excuse, but some Democrats say they will mark no vote on the ballot and, in effect, participate in an election that they vowed to sit out. Urging Thais to vote no, however, breaks election law and their own boycott. Mr. Suthep says these election results will surely be nullified, but so far he hasn't been so accurate with his goals. Bangkok is still functioning with a few setbacks, and Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra has yet to resign. Even if top Democrats do cast their ballots on Sunday, they could arrive at their local polling stations only to find them shut by the very same anti-government protesters they side with. Anasuya Sanyal, Channel News Asia, Bangkok.
Yingluck Shinawatra, of course, the Prime Minister, not taking this sitting down. The Thai Party filed a petition to the Election Commission asking it to ask the Constitutional Court to dissolve Apisit Wijajiwa's Democrat Party and to have its executives banned from politics for 5 years. And that is for helping anti-government protesters obstruct people from casting their ballots on advanced voting day last Sunday. The Thai's petition accuses the Democrats and Suthep Thaugsuban's People's Democrat Reform Committee of violating the Constitution, violating the criminal code, and violating the state of emergency because they blocked election officials from carrying out their duties and obstructed people from entering polling stations and voting. That petition also accuses the opposition of urging its supporters to destroy ballots and physically or verbally assault voters, all of which, it says, are illegal. Thailand's civil court, meanwhile, has accepted a petition filed by the PDRC protesters seeking to revoke the Bangkok state of emergency. A civil court is now in session, hearing arguments from both sides. Protest leader Tawon Siniam filed the petition arguing that the state of emergency is an overreaction on the government's part and it infringes on the rights of the opposition to peaceful assembly. Of course, it is very important to remember here that none of the provisions of this current state of emergency, like curfews or arrests without warrants, have been imposed since it was decreed last week. But the court has the power to issue a temporary injunction if it finds no grounds for the government to declare the emergency decree. All right, moving on now to the south of Thailand, which is the opposition's stronghold there. Channel News Asia's Panu Wongchaom is in the province of Nakhon Si Thammarat. Panu, Mr. Suthep says protesters will be holding their rallies, but they will not stop people from voting this coming Sunday. Anti-government protesters, though, are blocking regional post offices where you are. What's happening there?
Good evening, Tim. Well, basically, anti-government protesters have turned out last night, this is in Nakhon Si Thammarat province, to block a local post office where the ballot box and the ballot papers are believed to be installed. This is happening reportedly in 2 other post offices throughout the south. So in these post offices, reportedly there are ballot box and voting papers for several other provinces throughout the south. So the protesters say if they successfully block these 3 post offices, then voting could not take place on February 2nd. But it remains to be seen how the authority and how the local election commission can get around this blockage and host the election this coming Sunday. Tim?
All right, Panu, so in general, though, what's the mood like there in the south? What are some of the concerns of the people down there?
Well, certainly if the advanced voting is anything to go by and the situation today is anything to go by, the concern is that there will be more disruption to the vote on the actual day. The protesters here in Nakhon Si Thammarat are very organized, and earlier I was in Surat Thani, Suthep Thuksuban hometown province, to try to understand what these protesters are about and why they joined this protest and why they're blocking the polls.
The March of Supporters from the People's Democratic Reform Council is the most visible political activity in Surat Thani during the lead-up period to the February 2nd elections. The irony is that this group is campaigning for the vote to be postponed. Their leaders say major changes need to take place first before Thailand can go to the polls. The Democrat Party, which has dominated elections in Surat Thani for generations, has thrown its weight behind the movement, saying that reforms need to take place first before any elections can be held. But what really brought these Surat Thani residents onto the streets is not only party politics. Some genuinely feel aggrieved by what they see as neglect from the government in Bangkok. Accused of being anti-democratic, the grassroots leader of the People's Democratic Reform Council says they still believe in the concept of one man, one vote, but felt that this government has constantly overlooked their concerns.
ประชาธิปไตยมันเป็นการรับฟังแล้วถึงจะมาตีกรอบแต่นี้มันเป็นการตีกรอบให้อยู่ซึ่งต่อให้เรายกมือพูดต่อให้มีความคิดเห็นต่อให้มีนักการเมืองที่เก่งต่อให้มีประชาชนต้องเดือดร้อนอีก
Decentralization and the redistribution of administrative power has long been debated in Thailand, but has never yielded any real results on the ground. In rural Thailand, especially in the south, the prevailing sentiment is that the Bangkok-appointed civil service and police apparatus have not been working in their favor, and according to Damrong Theaksuban, an elected provincial administrator in Surat Thani, this is one of the many factors that led to southern support of the anti-government movement.
ประชาชนต้องการความโปร่งใสต้องการการพัฒนาผู้บริหารจากส่วนกลางมาอยู่เนี่ยไม่พัฒนาไม่ช่วยกันมาเอาผลประโยชน์จากประชาชนเท่านั้นประชาชนเรียกร้องให้เลือกผู้ว่าเลือกผู้บริหารของเขาเองถ้าไม่ดีเขาสามารถเอาออกได้เขาไม่เลือกได้เขาถอดถอนได้ผู้บริหารของเขาเองเหมือนกับผู้ว่ากทม
A move to decentralize Thai political structure is something that cannot happen overnight. For now, the center of power remains in Bangkok. But as political tensions escalate, this crucial issue may be drowned out by other, more immediate concerns.
this perceived gulf between the Bangkok point officials and local community is one of the major factors that drive these southerners to the streets of Surat Thani, Nakhon Si Thammarat and Bangkok. And it remains to be seen if future governments can solve this long-standing problem for Thailand. Jim?
All right, Panu, thanks for that. Panu Wongchom there in Nakhon Si Thammarat in southern Thailand. Well, Gerard, it's nightfall here and the protest stages are expected to be fired up again. Tonight we'll be monitoring those speeches and bring you the latest once we get them. That's all from me here in Bangkok.
We'll be monitoring indeed. Thank you. Timothy Go reporting there live from Bangkok.